starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, Edureka. Welcome back to day 3 of Amazon Web Services. I'm your trainer Tarun and I hope you all are doing great. So yesterday after a nice match, I hope you all are still charged up and ready for the Amazon. Before we move on, just wanted to know how many of you have tried with Amazon? Did anyone try with EC2, EBS, anything? Great to know. Funny has tried, so thanks Funny. Good to know you tried that. And for anyone who has question, I would request don't raise, just put in the question box. Good morning all again. And so Funny has tried. Anyone else who has tried this? Anyone? Did anyone play with Amazon EC2? Muthu. Thanks Muthu. So one more guy has tried this. What about others? I see 15 plus more. No one tried this? Okay, Suresh has also tried. So I can see a few, at least 3-4 people have tried. So any confusion, problem, or was it easy to do? I'm for now asking only EC2 and EBS, the topics we covered. So were your tries or efforts successful, or any issues, concerns you couldn't do? So Shashwata says, do you have a tips how to know how not to get charged? Shashwata, if you remember in the last session, I clearly mentioned follow my instructions. I showed the free usage tier. I also showed you what you should launch, only micro instance t2.micro. Probably you should not try with the elastic IP unless it's a must. So someone is saying there is some issue with my mic. Is it, am I audible correctly? Or anyone having issue? Okay, someone says it's a, is it, so few guys says it's audible. Is it clearly audible or you are facing some issue? Because it seems to be fine from my end. I just need to check at the GoToMeeting end. Okay, not sure if the issue is my end. Then let me speak with our support team if there is some issue and they can help on. I'll just check with them. Give me a minute. Till that time, if you have any questions, Shashwat, I believe I answered your question, but if you are still not clear, you can ping here. And I'll be back in a minute. Sorry, I was on a mute. I was just talking to support team. They are checking if there's some issue at the GoToMeeting end or someone else. If something, they would call me. And again, I may need to go for a mute for a minute. Okay, coming back to, I think Shashwat, I answered your question. How can you not get charged? In the last session also I explained, use the go to the free usage tier and how would you be able to achieve this. If you still have doubts, you're not clear, you can always write me. You can go through the videos of the last session where I showed what you should use, which would be helpful for you. Right? Any other questions? Anyone face problem in launching instance or anything? And by the way, is voice getting clear now or is some issue still there? Okay, there is some issue still there, but is it too bad or it's okay to go ahead? Okay, so few says it's okay to go ahead. Satish says it's hard to hear. I'm not sure what could be the issue in that case. So is it so? Again, I see a huge number of participants and I request everyone to at least volunteer and say, is it so bad or can we go ahead? So should we go ahead or no? Yes or no? I do understand the voice is breaking. Could be some issue at the GoToMeeting. And someone says it's not continuous, so we can go ahead. So if you all agree, then let's I think I'm not sure for the recording. I believe it should come clear because I am recording, so hopefully it should be clear. But if GoToMeeting is doing something, I'm not sure whether it would be clear or there could be issue. So frankly, unless I view the recording, sorry, but I may not be able to answer that concretely. And our support team is looking into this, so I hope we would hear back something. Okay, so Piyush says he cannot hear me at all. And then seems to be some issue then. Am I audible now or not? I'm just wondering now because this seems to be a little challenge. People keep complaining and I don't want to go ahead in a way where people are not happy or I'm not able to hear me. Okay, so people say it's now clear. Good to know. So I'll do something. Perfect. Then let's go ahead. Perfect. And then let's go ahead. I think now it's audible. Something has been fixed by the support team. Could be. Now, what I'll do is here. Yes, last time we missed a few part, which is around 10 minutes, which I'll cover today. But before that, I would like to go for some kind of a recap of the last week. And in this recap, as you all know, you all need to answer me and I'll correct and I'll give you the right answer. But as I mentioned before, please do participate. And that's very important. Remember I said it's a collaborative world. The cloud computing, the Scott McLean, it's a collaborative world. If you do collaborate, it also keeps me motivated. So you want to get more energized, Tarun, I would request you do participate. Okay, coming back to what is an EC2? I know the abbreviation Elastic Compute Cloud, but why do we use EC2? Or what does EC2 offer to you? I would request everyone quickly if you can write down your answers. Anyone? What does EC2 offer in the cloud? Okay, Funny has something. Good answer. Good answer from Funny. He says instance in the cloud. Good try from Suresh also. It's a scalable computing and data storage service. I would only go with the EC2 for now as a scalable computing. Shashwata says IaaS, but actually the Amazon itself is IaaS offering. So I won't say only EC2, but yes. So EC2 is Elastic Compute Cloud, which offers a virtual machines or virtual servers in the cloud, which is a flexible model. You can select the various kind of instances based on the OS, based on the instance type. There will be different instance types available. And then whatever the bits or whatever the you want to select, you can do that. Now, once you have the instance, but before you launch an instance, you need to select an AMI. Now, AMI has two types. Can you tell me the two types of AMIs? No, I cannot go with the answer Windows or Linux. That would be just operating system. AMI types. I know. so, so anyone? There are two types of AMIs, EBS backed and instant store backed. Yes. So what is the difference between these two AMIs? What is the difference between EBS backed and instant store backed? Right answer from Lohit. One is a persistent. True answer from Vikas also. It says the instant store deletion of EC2 will make the data lost. Good. Kapil says EBS is fastest but little expensive. Right answer. Not 100% still, I will say, and I'll come there. Why? EBS again, I would not go in a cost comparison here. EBS can be cheaper, EBS can be costly. It can be both. There are two types of AMIs, EBS back and the instant store back AMIs. Now the difference between those two AMI is in the EBS back AMI, whenever that AMI is launched, a EBS volume is always attached as a root volume. In the instant store back AMI, there would not be a root, it would be a ephemeral device or ephemeral storage which is attached. Ephemeral means temporarily. A storage would be attached as a root device. Now when you take these two kind of examples in EBS back and instant store back, the major difference would come, the EBS back would always persist. So even if the instance get terminated, your EBS volume may survive the instance termination, while in the instance back or instance store back AMI, the data would be lost. Another biggest advantage is EBS back AMI, you can always stop that. That's more like a hibernate kind of a state. You can always stop the instance. So that would help you that when you can start it back and you can save some money. If you are running 24/7, in that case, EBS sometimes might be little costlier because it would include the cost of the EBS also. So this is for the EBS as of now, EBS back and instant store back AMI. Now on the pricing model, what are the types of instances offered by the EC2? I would like everyone to little fast because we need to do something of the previous week also. So little faster if you can answer. Three types of pricing models. No one here? So no one, it looks no one tried to refer the PPT. It's on demand, reserved and spot instance. Amazon charges you for EC2 instance on three pricing models: on demand, reserved and spot instance. Coming back to the EBS, what is an EBS? So Vikas answered a while back, but anyone else? Yes, that EBS stands for elastic backup storage, but what does it offer? Right answer, Ricardo. It offers the persistence. EBS is a persistent storage. You can think of it's a plug-and-play device or stand storage where one EBS volume can be attached to one instance at a time in the same availability zone only. One instance can have a multiple EBS volumes, that is possible. EBS, how many types of EBS volumes are there? No, the answer is wrong. So Funny says, can one EBS hold multiple instances? No. Again, EBS does not hold the instance. EBS attaches with the instance. So this is, remember, like a USB drive where you attach to your computer. This USB drive would be, or hard disk would be USB, is like an EBS. So one EBS can attach to one instance at a time, but yes, it can be detached and attached to another instance. At a time, it can attach to only one instance. So does it mean, Funny says, whatever I try to save the data through instance, should it be saved in the EBS? Now it's a tricky one, because if your device is EBS back instance only, then your device, all the hard disk, whatever you say, the storage is always EBS, so it would always be stored. But if you have launched an instant store back AMI, then you need to mount a EBS volume and configure that your all data would persist in the EBS. So only data which you want to persist, you store in the EBS. But in the EBS back AMI, all data would always be stored in the EBS only, and data would always be persistent. I hope it makes sense now. So there were three types of the AMI. Okay, there is still one more question. If I choose EBS back, I have an option to stop instance anytime, correct? Yes. If you remember, I just mentioned a while back. Yes, I think I mentioned same thing a while back. In that case, EBS, you can stop the EBS back AMI, and Amazon would not charge you for running instance. It would charge you only for the EBS. Coming back to, there are three types of the EBS volumes, and Muthu answered correctly: general purpose, magnetic, and the provisioned IOPS. So general purpose is a new, I would say it's a new almost a year back, which is getting more popular because it gives you a better IO to cost ratio. Magnetic is a very old, for the which provides a very low IO but little cost effective. And the provision IOPS, where you want some dedicated IOs, you can use the provision IOPS also. Now before I start the session, last question. Sorry, we took a little more than the anticipated, but I believe no one has tried any hands-on. It would be recommended if you can try some hands-on and come back, because when we progress, it would look like you would feel something, you are going in an alien world. Some of the words you would not remember. And that was the reason I am emphasizing on some backup or the recap part today. But I would request everyone, do remember this part, because when we progress, I would not be able to spend 20 minutes every day just for the recap. Remember, then we have to extend our session a lot. I am okay to do that, but are you okay? So it's almost 20 minutes we are going there. But I believe that most of you have forgotten the thing, so I'm spending time here a little bit. Last question. Snapshot. What is a snapshot and why is it used? So Muthu says he's not able to see any assignment topics in the Edureka. I don't think you need any assignments. Whatever the tutorials we have given, the how-to guides kind of a stepwise approach, you can follow only that. That would be helpful. So use of the snapshot, before wasting any time, snapshot is for the backup of the EBS. You can have the backup of the EBS with the snapshot, but snapshot has a multiple advantages. Snapshot is a point-in-time backup. Once you take a point-in-time backup, you can use it for the disaster recovery, high availability. One case is where you want to increase the volume size. Plus, snapshot also gives you an incremental snapshot. So if today there is a 4 GB of data, you took a snapshot, next time you add 5 GB, it will take the backup of the 1 GB only, which is data being modified. So with this, I'll start the, actually we have something pending from the last week, so I'll go to that part first, and then I would move to the today's session. So last time till end we were talking about this EBS price comparison and how EBS would work. So all the prices, we compare the different volumes and all that. Now going little advanced in the EBS part, EBS is useful for encryption data at rest. So when sometimes your organization all that want that you should encrypt your data also, whatever the data is being stored at the EBS level, you want that to be encrypted. In that case, Amazon itself provides a AES 256 based encryption, where while launching an instance, you can configure, or while attaching and creating a new volume, you can configure that the encrypt the data. Amazon would automatically encrypt the data which is being stored over there, and when you fed the data, it will decrypt and show you. So you don't need to worry about, only thing would be internally when data is stored at the Amazon level, it would be in an encrypted way. Now you would say, why would it be required? in the 0.00001% chance, if something happens to Amazon or somebody gets some data or can access hard disk, which is very unlikely or rather almost impossible, but if that happens, still you can be assured that okay, my data is still in an encrypted way, so nobody can read this data. So that's what the Amazon offers, and it offers at a free of the cost. There is no charge for that. Now, when you want to go with the EBS, the performance is a very important aspect of an EBS. How can you improve the performance of an EBS volume? First question, why would I change the performance of EBS? Remember, what is an EBS? It's a storage device over the network, right? So in that case, your instance might be somewhere here in one data center. Your EBS volume would be also in the same data center, but they both would not be on the same hardware or firmware. They might be connected over the intranet or network over there, right? Now when they both are connected over network, there would be some latency in everything minutely. You want that to be increased. So you want the performance to be increased. How would you do that? There are a few things. Avoid throughput saturation. Now what is that? I'll come in a while. Next slide. You can do the striping. Does anyone know what is striping or raiding? Do you know the concept of the RAID, stripe? Striping, no one? So striping is like combining multiple volumes together in a way. That's a very famous concept with the database. I would recommend use the word stripe with the database. It would give you, in some of the cases where you want to, like you have a storage size of 1 terabyte only, and you want to increase it, no, I want 20 terabytes, but it should look like a single hard disk. You can attach 20 volumes to single instance, which would be fine, but you say, no, I want only one volume which should like a 20 terabytes to the instance, because in that case, you can attach 20 volumes, stripe them together. When you stripe or RAID them together, it would behave like a one volume, which is like a 20 terabytes. Striping is a separate mechanism, but that's possible with the EBS. And when you stripe 20 volumes together, it would increase the performance also. So for example, you have 100 IOPS offered by one, 20 may offer you 2000 IOPS, because they would increase the performance of the total hard disk. So this is the advantage of a striping. Yeah, striping comes with its a plus and minus, so I won't say you always do the striping. There are always challenges with that, but you can improve the little performance with the striping also. You can use the IOPS also. Also, Amazon offers a new instance type called the EBS optimized instance, which I'll come in a next slide. Now, but before that, when you create a new volume, for example, you created a 1 terabyte volume. First time when the volume is created, it would have some blank data over there, and the data would be still blank and creating over the file system and everything. Now when you start writing, immediately when you start writing, it may not give you the best of the performance initial part. How can you avoid that? There would be two ways. The generic volume, which gives you burstable 3000 IOPS at the boot, it can help you. Or Amazon offers pre-warming of provision IOPS. Now how do you pre-warm? How do you pre-warm? Someone says I am not audible. Is it same with all? Okay. So looks, everyone else, am I audible? Sorry, Shashwata, no means am I audible or not audible? Sorry. Okay, looks like I'm audible with everyone else. So good. Okay, just wanted to confirm on that. So what you can do is, Amazon provides an option. You should pre-warm your volume also. And for that, Amazon has gives you certain OS level commands only, that when you pre-warm, it would write a default data, and default means it will just create a block level data such a way that whenever you write, it would be available to you. So you can just pre-warm the provision IOPS for a initial level performance improvement. Now going little detail about those topics, EBS optimized instance. And what is that? Remember I said just now I draw this diagram where I have my EC2 instance and I have my EBS volume here. They both are connected over network, right? Now when they are connected over network, it may happen that in the same firmware where this instance is launched, there would be multiple instances running in the same firmware, which might be connecting to the some storage, which is here EBS storage, and they would have a shared bandwidth, right? I might be sharing my total bandwidth with the other instance also, which may be affecting my performance a little bit. Amazon offers you way, it's a chargeable, but if you want a real high performance of instance, you can go with the EBS optimized instance. Here, when you launch an instance, you can configure to be EBS optimized. There would be a flag which you set up. When you set up that flag, in that case, whenever an instance is launched, it would have a dedicated bandwidth between EC2 instance and EBS volume, which would give you very high throughput. So it's all game about the throughput and the performance. More throughput you want, because you would think, why would I care for the throughput and performance? You are going so much deep and deep. But remember, this is a virtual world where some data center is sitting in the remote place in the US and you are accessing over the internet, where the 1 milliseconds of latency also sometimes counts because you want to improve the user experience. And in all those cases, when you think there would be thousands, not thousands, millions of users, remember the Crick Info case, 45 million users trying to hit there, you would need a better performance there. Considering all this, you would need a case where you would have a better dedicated bandwidth between EBS and EC2. Another case is avoid throughput saturations. Now what happens? I would park this for 2 slides later. I'll show you what happened to the Amazon and how you can avoid that. That's a very curious case to know. So we'll go to that in a while. Also, when you're planning a snapshot, plan snapshot such a way where you take during the off-peak hours if possible. So because snapshot would momentarily affect your database performance. Just a second. I'm sorry, I'm having a little bad cold and cough today. Sorry, just a second. Huh? Yep, I'm back. Sorry for a momental back. Now, when you are taking a snapshot, when you take a snapshot, it would affect the performance of your volume momentarily. In that case, you would like the performance better. So what you should do, if possible, try to take the snapshot during the off-peak hours, like 3 a.m. in the night, where there is a little less load. Or if you have a master slave, like you have a backup of the database, primary and secondary, take the backup from the secondary database, which would also help you. Now we already spoke about the backup and restore of the EBS back AMI, so we all covered this. But a little more important slide over here, and this is very important. If you see at the bottom, there is a URL given, amazon.com message. You should read that. This is happened in around early 2010 or 11, I forgot the year, where Amazon had one of the biggest outage of their life, and almost Amazon US East region was down. And what was the root cause of that? So to show you, I'll go to the previous slide. Amazon, I would like to show the Amazon structure. So this is a Amazon EBS storage size, where they would have a storage like a nodes kind of a structure. They would have a cluster and nodes. Each node would be connected to another node over the two networks, primary and secondary. So what would happen? This is all block level storage. For example, you write certain data to EBS. Your data might be stored here in this node, node number 1, as well as it would also be stored in some other node also here, replicated internally. So in case if the node 1 goes down, there would be a backup available here. It might happen, it might be stored in a node 5 also. So if something 1 and 3 both goes down, it would be available as a backup. This thing Amazon does internally without your notifying you. So all data would be backed up and highly available for you. So for instance, what is this? Is this a EBS primary and secondary? No. This is EBS structure. This is EBS structure, how EBS is working internally. And to show you in the next slide, sorry, I deleted by mistake. So EBS structure would have two concepts, clusters and the control panel. Each cluster would have a set of EBS nodes. So you would have a EBS cluster and there is a control panel. And then each cluster would have a set of nodes. The control panel would decide whenever someone writes a data to the EBS, control panel would decide which block or which node it would go, whether it goes to here or here or here. Also, internally it would decide which node it would replicate the data also. So in case one of the node fails, the other nodes are still available and serving your data, and there is always a backup available. Now each node is connected. So this is a completely internal structure. Even if you don't understand, you're fine. You can live your life very easily with EBS, but this is just for your understanding purpose. And why performance is very important, I'm showing this case to you. Now, in this case, what would happen? Whenever you write a data to EBS, they both are connected to the another node over two secondary or two networks, primary and secondary. And this would keep replicating at certain speed. Again, Amazon does not provide the internal information, how they are connected, what network provision they do use, everything. They don't provide all that. But as I said before also, just try to understand the concept. Don't go in a total deep level, because Amazon would never provide you this kind of internal information. This information came out only because there was a major outage and Amazon had to come out publicly and accept we did some mistake and we are there. So what do I mean by a node? Is it an EBS instance? No. Remember, this whole is a EBS. What is EBS? EBS is a block level storage where you would have a huge number of a hard disk. You can think there is a huge SAN storage somewhere. Out of that, some blocks are reserved for you. So there would be, if you want to see in a way, there would be thousands and thousands of, I can't say terabytes, so beyond there would be a block level storage. When you go and say create a EBS of 1 terabyte, it would allocate certain blocks for you on that device. If someone else can say create new volume, it would also allocate certain blocks on this volume. That is how the EBS block level storage would be. And this node level is working internally over here in the blocks. So does it mean that one node in a storage cluster connects multiple EBS storage blocks? EBS storage blocks itself are like a, you can say it's an EBS nodes. Each node would have a certain kind of a storage blocks, and then they would be attached to each other. So when you write a data, the data would be given to you. Some data would be written here on one block, some on another block. It would be written over there, right? Or are you still confused, everyone? Just think it's an EBS, and frankly, I would not go so deep down, or we can park those questions for the end of the session because I'm literally running out of the time today. Then, okay, good to know, no confusion. So what we will do is, if you have any questions, I would say park it for a while. We'll take after the session because we are literally short today. Now, what would happen in this case, or Amazon case, what happened? due to a manual mistake, one person in Amazon for some reason diverted all primary traffic to secondary. Unfortunately, that time the primary and secondary were of not same capacity. So what would happen in that case? In that case, for example, primary was around, just again example, was 10 GB pipe, 10 MB or 10 GB, while secondary was just 1 GB pipe. Now, in this case, if all data which is flowing through 10 GB is now diverted to flow through the 1 GB, that would result in a data saturation. The data would be flooded because 1 GB would not have enough capacity to take all the data as 10 GB. And that same thing happened on that day also. And Amazon has an internal mechanism where if one node tries to connect to second node, if that second node does not reply, it would automatically tries to connect to another node. After all this problem, 1 GB pipeline was full, or the secondary pipeline was full. So first node was not able to contact to another node because it was taking a huge time. So first node started to trying to contact to third node. It did not reply. So third tried to contact to fourth node. Second also tried to connect to fourth node. Third tried to connect to fifth node. Everybody started hopping over there, and that resulted in a chaos and some data lost, issue in the snapshot, and outage in the Amazon. One of the biggest outage, and almostly US East region was down that time. So Amazon had to come out publicly. Only positive out of this outage was that Amazon had to publicly come out and give their internal architecture, what went wrong, how they cover up and everything. But my point here is this data saturation is very important, because if whatever your capacity of your throughput is, if you try to pass data more than that, it would not work very well. So if you are really interested to know more, I've given the link. I would recommend to go through that. It would give you more and more idea about this, and you would be able to understand better. So I would recommend, if you have time, you can go through that, and then in the next session or sometimes you can drop me a mail offline and I can discuss this issue with you. But only outcome or only positive I would say, remember to understand the bandwidth issue and don't saturate your network. That's a very key outcome from this. So with this, I bring the end to the EBS volume, and now it's time to jump to the next session of the today, which I'm going to start now. I would request everyone, I would park all your questions for now. After the session, if you have any questions on the EBS, I would answer for sure. I would be there to answer all your questions. So let's move on to the today's session. That's Amazon Simple Storage System. Amazon Simple Storage System. What is S3? Simple Storage System is a storage for the internet. Now what do I mean by the storage for the internet? It is designed to make web scale computing easier for developer. It's a simple web service that can be used to store and retrieve any amount of data at any time or anywhere on the web. Hold on, Tarun. You said EBS is also there. EBS is a storage system. Now you come out with the saying that S3 is a storage for the internet, but EBS is also virtual. I'm connecting on the EBS on the internet only. Is it same or is it different? Biggest difference. S3 is more for a static content storage. Static, you used a very specific word, static. Any reason? What do I mean by static here? Do you know, or I'm sure everybody knows about the Google Docs, right? You all know about or Google Drive, rather I would say Google Docs, I would say Google Drive. You all know the FTP kind of a concept also, right? What do you store in the FTP? You upload certain content like your doc file, image file, video file, anything over there, and somebody downloads it over the internet, right? It's just for a storage purpose. Can you do database processing here in FTP? No, right? What about Google Drive? If you don't think there is a concept called Google Docs, if I just store content in the Google Drive, I can access it over anywhere, that docs. correct? It's just for the storage. Exact same concept is here. Amazon S3 is a storage for the internet for the static content. Now static means any file, like you have a file in your hard disk, like you have a Word file, Notepad file, or like TXT file, image file, video file, anything you want to share with others, you upload to S3, people can access, or even you can access from anywhere. It's just for storing over the internet file. Very simple, you just upload the file and anybody can access from the internet if you have shared there. I would request everyone hold on your question for a while. I am going to cover most of the things. We are just starting with the S3. So please focus here, and if I don't answer the questions, I'll definitely take up that. But those questions I'll definitely answer what S3 would be and how it would be working. So S3 is only for the static storage content. It's a very highly scalable, reliable, fast, inexpensive data storage. Now why do you need it, and what is so different with this over the EBS? One thing, remember I clearly mentioned last week, EBS is not accessible over internet. Do you agree or do you not agree? Can I access EBS over the internet? EBS means EBS data. Can I access EBS data over internet? No. How come? We created a files. I was able to show you all the files, wasn't I? I was showing that there was some data in the EBS volumes, and I was showing all the data. We created a file before backup, snapshot, and before snapshot, after snapshot, all that. Right? So EBS is accessible over internet, correct? Perfect answer from Nallapuram. We did not connect to EBS. We connected to instance, and that instance was showing the data. If EBS is not connected to any instance, would it have any IP? No. If it doesn't have any IP, how would you connect it? So EBS is for a file system where it connects to a instance and gives you a file system kind of where you can store your database, dynamic data, everything, web server, everything you can store there. So EBS is within data center stored inside over there. S3 in compare is considered for a static content. And static content, they say it a object word. What is an object? I'll come in a while. But you can say any static file you can store in the S3. The biggest difference between these two would be, if you remember just a while back I mentioned, in the EBS all data is replicated on the nodes within same data center. While on S3 this is replicated across the region, because S3 is for the region only. There is no concept like a zone for the S3. If you upload certain object, now I'm going to use the words object only. You can think object is a file, but not exactly, little different. What I'll show in a while. But whatever data you can upload on the S3, or whatever the object you upload on S3, that would be replicated internally across the data center. So across zones. This was, EBS was for one zone only. In S3, when you upload certain content, it might be copying that to availability zone 1, 2 and 3, such a way even if 2 zone goes down, your S3 would not be affected. And that's why Amazon S3 gives you one of the highest durability across the industry, which is called 11.9. So 99.99 durability offered by Amazon S3, because it replicates data across data center within the same region. But Tarun, I'm still not clear why we need S3. Hold on for a while. I'll show you what S3 would do for you. But S3 is amazing. It's growing phenomenally. And this was the data available for me almost 2 years back. Since then, Amazon has not published the data. But what people say, it's holding today as of now more than 4 billion sorry, 4 trillion objects. 4 trillion. Amazon S3 was the first service which was offered by Amazon. Amazon started offering S3. It's IaaS services with the S3 only. And since then it has grown beyond the imagination. Now who uses S3? Do you think anybody uses S3? You all are using S3. Most of you are using S3 right now. How? Are you using Dropbox? Are you using Instagram? They all are using S3 at the backend. Are you using Netflix? It's also using S3 at the backend. They are storing their whatever you upload in the Dropbox, at the end it would be stored in the S3 only. Whatever you are uploading photo in the Instagram, as of now it's still in the Amazon S3. They are soon, currently they are migrating to the Facebook data center, but not completely finished they have yet. Whatever the videos you see on the Netflix, they are coming from the S3. So S3 is a very powerful tool to use. Static content storage. S3 has a 4 key concept, but 2 the most important. First concept, I would start with the object. Any file which you upload on S3 is called the object. Now file means it can be Word file, doc file, JPEG file, HTML file, TXT file, CSV file, any format. Whatever in your Windows machine you can see that file. Same file you can upload here. Any, even in Linux machine, I'm not saying Windows. Any file you can upload here. But when that is uploaded to S3, it is called an object. Why? Because when a file you have in your machine, it would have a certain kind of a metadata. File name, size, date modified, right? A few, the last created date, those things. S3 follows object model where it's a, each content or each would have a multiple metadata. It can have a content type, access rights, URL, owner, key value, so many things. So they don't call it a file, they call it an object. Object you can think again as if it's like a file only, but since it's having a multiple metadata, it's called the object. So object would have a data that is the content of the file and metadata which is the all the metadata which describe the object. It can be key, URL, owner, tag, content type, and you can have your own custom metadata also. All objects are collected in a bucket. Bucket you can think it's like a folder, but I won't say it's a folder like a directory, but rather bucket is a way where it would be collection of all the objects. All objects would always be stored in a bucket, and this object can be accessed from the internet. Object can be accessed from the internet. So before I confuse you more, let's go and have a demo first, and then we would come back so you know something what I'm talking about. I believe that would clear your most of the doubts and we can do much smoother ride. What happened? It's not going. Not sure why, what's happening? Just a moment. Just a moment. Let me try another browser. What seems something different? Just a moment, I'm just trying what's the issue here. Okay, fortunately my other browser is working fine. Something issue with my Chrome, not sure why. So let's go to the S3 now. So I'm in the S3 now. I'm clicking on the S3. Amazon S3 is a content for the internet or storage content system for the internet. Now what you see here on the left hand side is known as a bucket. What is a bucket? Bucket is nothing but a collection of the objects. I'll create a bucket. Now I'll need to give the name of the bucket. What's date today? 21st Feb. And remember, nothing specific to zone, only region. So I'm creating in US standard and I'll say create bucket. So it has created a bucket. Bucket is empty. I just went and click on the bucket name and I can upload files here. When I want to upload the files, I'll select the 3 files here just for the reference. Once I upload it, it would be called object. Now they are known as object because S3 follows the object storage system. This is my file. All these are available here. And if I want to see them, I can access from the internet also. Now why do I call it an object? Remember, I said it is having a multiple metadata. See which bucket it falls into, what is the name, what is the link to access the object, what is the size, when was it last modified, who is the owner, e-tag is the unique tag given by the Amazon, if there is an expiry date, expiry rule, which I'll cover in a little. I can add more metadata as per the bottom. Okay, content type is image. If I want to add more, saying that, okay, something I just want to give. So I can have a multiple metadata attached with this, and that's why it's called the object storage system. Now, but Tarun, you were saying that you can access from the internet. Can I? Okay, let me click on the URL. What happens? No, it says access denied, because by default, when an object is created, it would not have any permission available over internet. You need to explicitly give it from the permissions. Currently only I am having a permission to view this. I can add more permission saying everyone can open and download or view. Oh sorry, view is for the only permissions only. Everyone can open and download. Okay. Now I just refresh the page. You can see the image. Let's make it for the others. Now why do I use S3? Where would I use? Can anyone give me some examples which you can think of? I'm just clicking on the URL. It's available. I just show this. Anyone? Examples? So few examples. If I want to store my data and want to share it with, yes, Funny is the right point. Another point from Funny is, if I want to store the data to produce some required output, could be for my archive documentation, I would uncode this archive. Reason I'll come to that in later part. I can use the other tool like EMR to run the jobs on the store file in S3, right? We can store it like a Google image, right? It's for the storage of the content. Now I just give you an example. For example, I am having a website. This website would have a multiple images, or you are making a photo site like Instagram, video site like a YouTube, something there. You would have a huge number of files and data available. How would you store it? And you want to show it to the users quickly. S3 is the answers for you. See, this is my image being referred in the HTML. I can show that here very easily. So for this, and there would be a multiple uses. You want to store the data here, you want to run your log files. For sometimes you want whatever the data you are having on EBS, if you find it's too much size consuming and I want to just store in S3, because S3 would be cheaper than EBS in some content. Just for example, you are having a huge number of log files generated by your web servers. You don't want to store there because you say I don't access them anymore. Move it to the S3. You are having a huge number of database, file archives, everything, file service. Just keep it here for storage purpose where you want to download. It would be a very cheaper storage for the internet, which you can upload somewhere and access from anywhere. Does it make clear now why S3 is used or what you can do with the S3? Everybody clear? I need yes from everyone, please. Great. So at least I got a 70% yes, and that's a good to know. So others, I think, hopefully listening to me. Cool. Now, before I go to theory, let's play with something so we can quickly go through theory in some parts. So I'll show something in action that would be better. Now, what we did here is, we know bucket is a collection of the objects. An object can never be in the bucket directly. Now, let's create a bucket, one more bucket. I create a bucket called taste and I say create. It says no. The requested bucket name is not available. The bucket namespace shared by all users. But when I check my data, I don't have any bucket name exactly as a test. That means this bucket is being created by someone else. So if you have created a bucket named test, does it mean I cannot create that same bucket? Yes, Amazon says that. If some other Amazon account has also created a bucket named test, I cannot create that. Can you imagine what could be the reason? If you have created a bucket named test, I cannot create it. Why? Not the name zone storage conflict. Something more? Because it's a global. Then, but global means it's not per region. But why? Yes, Bhupesh is the right answer. Did you see this? When I access the object had a name of my bucket. Each URL would have a name of the bucket. So if I create a name called bucket name called taste, that means the URL would have that taste as part of this. So Amazon cannot give the same name to you because the URL would be same. It would conflict. Does it make sense? Why you can't have the so whenever you try to, and then you would have a question, but how would I know someone has taken this bucket or not? Try to create, Amazon would give you error, or always give a unique name which is unique to your requirement and hope no one has taken that. Right? So bucket name has to be unique across globe, across all Amazon users, and they should not have created a certain bucket name over there. Now one more important part. We made all the objects of the bucket as a public. So I am accessing all the objects. How about bucket? When I click here, it says access denied. Why? Because buckets property and objects property is always different. Even if you make all the objects of the bucket public, that does not mean the bucket is also public. Same way vice versa is also true. If you make all the bucket public or the whole bucket public, does not mean all the objects are also accessible internally. So you have to go and manually give the permission to everyone. Hold on, Tarun. You are telling now that if I want to make all objects public, does it mean I have 1,000 objects? I need to go to each and every 1,000 objects and make it public? That's not possible for me. It's a tiring. Amazon does have a workout that is called the bucket policy. So first I'll show you the permissions part. Here you see the bucket is not public, so I'll just add more permission. I'll say to everyone, everyone can list my bucket, and bucket also offers the concept called policy, but I'll not explain the policy now. I assure you on the day 5 when we talk about the IAM where we define the policy, I'll show you how you can do that. So for now, if I just go there and refresh my page, you can see now bucket is accessible over internet. It shows all the content in a XML format. How many objects are there? What is the sum of the metadata of the objects? It would show all this content here. And there would be a way for the bucket policy which would also help you. Now we will do some theory and then we will come back to the session again. So let's do some theory. So each object can be of maximum 5 terabytes. I am talking about the object, remember, not the bucket. One bucket can have unlimited objects. I repeat, unlimited objects. You can have as many objects as you want, but one object can be of maximum 5 terabytes. You can read and write whole object. Each object would have a unique developer assigned key. That is what you said the name, right? All objects are always part of the bucket. Object cannot be independent. Each object would have a unique URL which can be accessed over the internet. Intrinsic redundancy within the region across data centers, it is being replicated. You would have a full access control of access and rights. We did that. It follows eventual consistency model. I'll come to that point in a while. It does support versioning. Now that's a tricky thing. What is versioning? Oh, sorry. if you have used the Git or some calls it JIT, whatever you call it, and if you have used the VSS or SVN, something like that, right? You create a version so your old data is not lost. You just keep on writing on top of that, so you can always recover the previous version. Same thing you can do here. You can just enable the versioning on the object bucket. Now, whenever you upload a new object of the same name, it would just archive the or rather version the older object over there. So for example, if I enable versioning and now I go inside, currently I have not done that, but if I go and upload AWS S3.jpg, it would not delete the previous one but store in a previous version. Only challenge with the versioning is if you want to receive the older versions of the data, you can receive it from the using the SDKs or APIs only. You can't access from this management console. So you said that's fine, but why? Now see the challenge here. If you have enabled versioning and you created one file, now you try to upload a new file, it will store the previous file as a version 1. So just to show here, you have a file V here, you uploaded V2 here. So this V would be in some version stored internally, which you would not be able to access directly on console. Now even if you delete V2, this version would still stay there. It would not be deleted because it's a version. Now if you delete everything and you try to delete a bucket also, it would not allow you to delete, saying there is still older versions available. So you have to write a code to see the older versions, delete it, then only you would be able to delete the bucket. So unless you have a practical case, don't enable the versioning. But just for information, Amazon does support the versioning of the content also. Now, moving on, how does you work with the S3? We did that. You sign up with the S3, create a bucket, add object to the bucket, you view object, you can move the objects. We will see that in a while. Now, objects would be stored inside a bucket. This is how it would be. But there are some specific bucket names or object names that I would use. What is this? 2011/birthday snap/kit.jpg. Why do I use this kind of a names? This is because Amazon, for example, you have a bucket called photos. Now you have photos uploaded of 2010, 11, 12, 13, 2014, all photos you uploaded. Now you want to find those photos, it would be very tough for you. You need to create a multiple buckets, but you say no, I don't want to create a multiple buckets and everything. That's challenging for me. Amazon gives an option which allows you to create a folder, inside a bucket. See the word create folder. What is a folder? Folder is nothing but, you can say, it's an object with no data. Folder you can treat because it would also have a certain metadata available there. It would also have everything. So you can say it would be a object with no data over there. I won't call it a sub bucket because it doesn't need that unique creativity, everything, but it's again for grouping of the objects. Now if I upload something, now I go here to one of the objects, I try to access, it would not. My bucket was public, but each and individual object also I need to make it a public. So once I make this object public, then only I would be able to access this. Remember I said vice versa is also possible. If bucket is public, object might not be public. Object is public, bucket might not be public. That's what happens. And when you see the URL is s3 amazon.com bucket name / folder name / this. So this way you can group it here. Now clear concept with the folders. Folder is for the grouping of the objects only inside that, which would help you, and the name would be something like folder name / or it would be like this. Important aspect one more. You can access objects with 2 different names. How? For example, I go here just for easy. This is my object. I close all. I am accessing the object with this name. I can also access it with the URL where I provide the bucket name in the front. See, you can access object either with this name URL or the previous URL. That is called the concept. One is virtual hosted style, another is a path style. So virtual hosted where the bucket name would be in front. Remember the images.google.com, mail.google.com. Path style where the google.com / mail, google.com / images. You can do that. Now why would I need this? Is there any advantage? Not much, but one very important advantage, which is not everybody knows or easily understand, but if I can show you, let me create a bucket name. Just give a name. Oh, sorry, region, your standard. Okay, so Amazon started this now. Fortunately, it allowed me before. Now the major was, let me access this. I'm able to access this. But if I go ahead, it would not work for me. Why? In the virtual hosted, it always converts the part first as a lower letters. So mine was T capital. Amazon or the, I want Amazon browser convert to lower letter, and so Amazon would not find and it would give me access denied. So this would be helpful in case you have a capital letter, but now Amazon doesn't support this capital, which is a surprise. It used to initially. You can see I have already created before, but they stopped a while back. So that could be the one of the reason, and there could be some other reasons. You want to give the URL something like bucket and name something, you can use that. So it supports the namespace in a 2 ways. Going in little detail about the S3. S3 achieves high availability by replicating data across the multiple servers, and that we understand that. Okay, so within region it would keep replicating the data over there. We understand that. Now this is a very important part. S3 data consistency model, and if you are going for an Amazon certification, you might get a question on this page. What is S3 data consistency model? S3 provides eventual consistency model for US East region. Now that is what you are talking about. US East means standard region for all requests. But for all other regions, it provides read after write, or means a consistent read for put a new object in the other regions, and for overrides it provides the eventual consistency. Now what's all this? Eventual consistency. Does anyone know this theorem? This is not the Aam Aadmi Party topi. This is CAP. Does anyone know this? Ricardo, great. What this theorem says, when you want to make a real scalable systems, you can achieve only 2 attributes out of 3. What are these 3? Consistency, availability, and partition tolerance. Partition tolerance you can think is like a clustering kind of a data or spread across that over there, distributed over the multiple servers over there. So for a scalable system you can achieve only 2 components out of that. CAP is a very interesting theorem, and if you are interested I would recommend to go ahead and read that. But coming to our point, most of the NoSQL databases across the world. Now what is NoSQL? Do you know? Not only SQL, and we will see something more on day 6, but coming to, they are based on this CAP theorem, and we had a very good, very interesting blog called everythingdistributed.com. everythingdistributed.com. Who has written this? Who writes this blog? Dr. Werner Vogels. Does that name sign something in your mind? Who is Dr. Werner Vogels? He is CIO, CTO of Amazon. And around in 2008, I'm talking 2008, he wrote a very brilliant article called the eventual consistency model, why it is required. And I would recommend, it's a must read for everyone. Just Google eventual consistency with everything, sorry, not everything, all things distributed. I am sorry for this, allthingsdistributed.com. So Google eventual consistency with the allthingsdistributed.com or eventual consistency by Dr. Werner Vogels. A very nice article to read. And that has paved way for so many NoSQL database in the current generation. Now Amazon S3 is also based on this. What does that mean? Amazon is highly available. It goes on a cluster. So if I give you some concept like that, Amazon's data would be stored on a separate clusters. Now when you write a data, that data might be copied across multiple clusters. Now those clusters might be in a separate availability zone also. Now when this data is written across certain clusters, then only data becomes consistent. Till that time it's not consistent. So it may take around a second or some time. It's a very fast. Amazon does not give you the exact data how fast it is, but it's a very fast. So, but in some cases it may happen that when you write and immediately try to read, it might be not return you that data. It may return you stale data. If you delete and still try to read, it may return you data, because it is possible that eventual consistency can return you stale data, because it takes a little while, could be a second, could be little less than that, to replicate the data across. Now, after all this, what do you achieve? You achieve the huge scalability. Remember those trillions of objects? That's possible because of this. You get the very low read latency, very faster output, very high throughput. So if you are okay with this, and again remember this is not a database, so you would be okay with this, you would get the best of the content and best of the performance. So remember, you might receive a question from this part, which object data consistency model Amazon follows, right? Now going in the S3 functionality, S3 provides you write, read, delete objects. You can read and write the complete object also. Now, a bucket can be stored in a one or several regions. That's you know. So, Amazon also provides one good option. Copy the objects. So, for example, I am here. Where is my bucket? 21st Feb. If I want to achieve the high availability of disaster recovery in some case, or I want the backup, I can select the objects. From actions, I say copy. I go to the buckets and I can create a new bucket. I created a new bucket in Singapore. And I can just go to the actions and say paste. All objects available with same permission. So they would be public as I mentioned before. So I'll go to the, I'll click here. Only difference between these two, you will see two tabs here. First one is where it was in US East region. This is where it is in the US Singapore region. This is US East region. And this is in the Singapore region. Only difference is the URL. This URL in the Singapore would have a region name also part of that. Apart from that, everything would be same, you can see, and then the bucket name, whatever you have given, and then you would be able to access it. So you can achieve the high copy with this also. Now, S3 also provides the APIs. You can use the REST and SOAP APIs. SOAP is becoming deprecated with the Amazon more and more. So it's recommended to use the REST only. Now what is REST and SOAP? That's out of a little discussion here. But whoever is doing the APIs, it would be working for you. Then it is built to be flexible. So it's a very flexible. Going further, S3 reduced redundancy storage. Now what is this? When you create an object, Amazon S3 provides you what kind of a durability? 99.99, right? That's a very high durability. But in some cases you won't need so high durability. You say I want to save little bit money if possible. Then Amazon provides another kind of a storage called reduced redundancy, which is provides you only 49, that is a 99.99. How does it work? I go to my bucket, in the properties you can see the storage class is a standard. I go to the details and I change the storage class to reduce redundancy and I save. You can see on the left hand side now the storage class is changed as a reduced redundancy. It would be costing me little cheaper. How much cheaper? I'll come to you. But S3 and RRS work exactly same. Only difference is they have that little different durability. So S3, the RRS is little cheaper. That's the only difference. Now we can also have a server side encryption with this. If you want, like I said, EBS can be encrypted. Same way you want to encrypt the objects, you can enable this kind of encryption, which Amazon would internally do, free of the cost for you. So RRS provides the 99% of durability and works exactly similar as that, but it's a little cheaper. Now coming to the S3 bucket policy, we talk about S3 can be in the bucket, you can define two ways. One is the access control list. Till now, whatever we are working on the S3 buckets is called access control list. This is access control list where you have a limited, and one advanced level is called the bucket policy. Bucket policy, we would see more detail on day 5. But for the access control list, remember bucket and object's own XCL are always different. If something bucket is public, does not mean all objects are accessible. If object is public, does not mean the bucket is also public. The access control list would include the permission like read, write, read access control, write access control, and the full control. We would be normally doing with the read write over here only. This is more about the permission part of the access control. Now we talk about these three. An S3 object or bucket can be configured to access in a 3 ways. One we already spoke and showed with the access control list. Second is a bucket policy, which we'll talk on day 5. Even I would show you, you can access the objects with the IAM, which also I will show you. These two I would show you for sure on day 5, where I talk in detail about the IAM, how do you define a policy, why it would be useful. All this in detail on day 5 I would cover you. But just for your reference I am putting here because this is possible. Now we already showed this, the server-side encryption. Amazon S3 supports the ES256 server-side encryptions, which would be very easy to use. It would automatically encrypt the data. It would use the internal key, but it also provides you 3-way encryption mechanism. Now what do I mean by the 3-way? Whenever you write a data, for example, this is the data, and if you have enabled AES256, which I showed before, the data would be encrypted with some master key. So data would be encrypted and stored over there. Now one more level is this key itself would be encrypted with one more key, which is called the Amazon's own master key. So this is the second level of encryption. And this master key, Amazon keeps rotating every month. So even if someone by mistake gets this key, they try to do something mischief, by the time they remove, unencrypt this part, which is also very unlikely, then they go for this, by the time the key is changed. And everything happens internally for you. You just need to go and click that option saying encrypt using AES256. Amazon does everything for you and free of cost. Yes, encryption only is free of cost. Amazon does charge you how much, and some more part of the Amazon S3 we would cover after the break. It's a 9:29 my watch almost now. I'm taking a break, so we would not take a huge break today. Let's come back by around 9:36 or 9:37 max. So we all should be back by that time. 9:36 or 9:37. It's a break time, 9:36, 9:37. And by the time, if you have any questions, do keep pinging me. So I am back. I hope you all are too. Okay. So before we went on the break, I just mentioned about that how S3 would be priced. And one of the biggest factor with the Amazon is the Amazon's innovation and the continuously running price cuts. Since its inception, that's from 2006 till 2014 April, Amazon has made 42 price cuts announcements for various services. So on an average, you can say around 5 to 6 price cuts per year they are making for various services. One announcement could be for S3, one could be EBS, one could be for S3, could be different. I have never ever seen Amazon increasing the price. Always keep decreasing. So before 1st February 2014, Amazon S3 was charged at 0.095 per GB. On 1st February, Amazon decided that price would now start charging at a 0.085 per GB. That's a 10 cents cheaper per GB. So now imagine you have a 100 GB, you would save around $10. And if you have a 1000 GB, you would save around $100, right? A month. Sorry, it was a 1 cents per GB. I'm extremely sorry. So for when you have a 1000 GB, you would save around $10 a month amount you would save here. And this is the pricing for standard storage. This is for the reduced redundancy. Glacier we will talk on day 6 in detail, so I'm not talking as of now. But this was not enough. On April 1st, and no April Fool, Amazon reduced by 1/3. From 0.085 to it jumped back to 0.03. So almost 5.5 cents per GB price different reduced. So even if you have a 1000 GB, you would save around $55 a month saving. Remember the data like Dropbox and Instagram who are having it thousands of terabytes, how much they would be effectively able to save. Very competitive pricing. At the same time, Amazon S3 offers 5 GB storage at free of the cost to you for first year as part of the free usage. So somebody who are concerned for the pricing, you can store up to 5 GB with Amazon S3 at free of the cost. So coming back to that's the pricing, a few tools and tips. There are a few market tools and all that available, but these were more popular when Amazon console was not so great. Amazon console has kept on improving and it's so friendly, user friendly now. You can directly use the Amazon Explorer. There would be few tools like Cloudberry and all that which might allow you to see the archival and all, versioning and all that part, which might be possible for you. But otherwise you can live very happily with the S3 user console. We spoke about the REST and SOAP. SOAP is now becoming more deprecated, so you should use the APIs for the REST only. I believe somebody asked me a question about this APIs and this is the answer for them. So I didn't answer that time, but I hope this answers your questions. Amazon does provide the APIs, SDKs also. So there would be SDKs also available. You can download the sample Java files available on Amazon's website only for whatever programming language you want, Java, .NET, PHP, Ruby. There would be sample programs available. There would be APIs available to create bucket, delete bucket, list bucket, get policies, put object, get object, delete object. Different kind of a policy also available for the S3 APIs and SDKs. Now where is S3 being used? Before I go there, let's finish something pending on the Amazon S3 side. We talk about this is my bucket. We talk about the permissions. Now S3 has one very important use also. S3 allows to host a static website. I created an index.html. I can host it now. When I go to the index.html over there, for example, I need to access with this kind of a URL, and I have to specify index.html and all that part, right? If I don't want that and I want my custom URL and all that part, I can do static website hosting using Amazon S3. Go to S3, enable website hosting, and it would work for you. What is your index document? It's index.html. If you want to show some error document, you can show that also and save. Now, when I click the URL, it doesn't need the index.html or something. It's available for me, this URL. And I can use this with a Route 53, which is Amazon domain name service, to give my own specific domain name also. So if I own the URL called tarundave.com and I want to redirect that to this URL, I can do that. So static website hosting is also one very good use case with this. You can log all the access of the bucket. So whoever from which IP the request come, how many requests for each bucket, how for each object, all these things you can log also. That supports the logging. Events is a new announcement from Amazon. This is with the Amazon Lambda function which Amazon recently introduced. Why it would be useful for you? For example, you create an image. Now, when you create an image, at the same time you also want to create a thumbnail of that image. Now, how would you know whether image is uploaded or not? You can write an event here that whenever this image is uploaded, take certain action. So you can select take a Lambda function. That Lambda function would create a thumbnail for you. So this is kind of an observer pattern if you know about, where you can take certain action based on some event has happened. We spoke about the versioning. Lifecycle I will explain on day 6 when I explain the glacier. Tags, when you want to tag your buckets also, something like saying that, okay, this is for which cost center it belongs to. It says it can be helpful, or some other name. You want to give this cost allocation tagging, it would be helpful for you. Request a page is an interesting option. For example, Amazon S3 does not charge you only for the storage. It also charges you for the IO. So input would be free, but output it would charge you. So for example, somebody requested to download an object. Now if that object is of 5 GB size, if somebody downloads that 5 GB, that 5 GB output would cost to you. Now you have hosted some video publicly. You want to say let's everybody watch this video. But you say it's for the sake of people. Why should I keep paying for the download cost? I don't want to pay that. So you can enable this option request or pay, where if you have hosted some file and somebody requests to download that file, you would be paying for the storage, but all the download cost that user has to pay, whoever has requested that. It works with the Amazon's Dev Pay mechanism, which allows you to charge users. So once user pays, then Amazon would allow to the download that object and it would be possible. So that's also an option possible with the S3. So this is all about the S3, what we wanted to see. Now we just see a few use cases. You can use for the media sharing, media and software content distribution, backup, online storage, application storage, and we see the famous cases SmugMug, Dropbox, Instagram, Netflix. They all are using S3. So any questions till now? Are we all clear with the S3? Whatever questions you raised in the beginning, I may not have answered that time, but I hope those are answered by now. Any questions for the S3? Anyone? Cool. At least one person says no question from him. I hope everyone is clear. So one question, while uploading a file, is there any file restriction? If you remember, I mentioned one object can be of maximum 5 GB size. Can application hosted on S3 access the data in EC2? My question would be, how would you host an application on S3? Or are you asking differently? Can application hosted on EC2 access data in S3? I'm not sure what your question is. Remember, S3 is for static content. Did I ever say you can host a web application here? No, you can never. Right? It's just for the static. What is the difference between standard RRS and Glacier? I think I already explained the standard and RRS. RRS offers you less durability, that is only 99.99, and it charges you also less. Glacier, I am parking it for the day 6. I would explain in detail what is the use of that, and it would clear you. A question, could you put MySQL? I would ask you, do you think can I put? What would MySQL need? Doesn't it need some processing? Doesn't it need some database engine? Do you see any place where you can do this processing or engine? If you want to install the MySQL, how would you install here? Does it provide you any processing engine, compute power? No. It only gives you static storage content. You just upload a file there. That's it. You cannot do anything more than that. So it's only for the file storage where you want to upload a file and access from anything. Now you want to make an application like, for example, you want to make an application like Instagram. Now Instagram uploads, you upload an image in Instagram. So those uploading part and everything, processing logic would be in EC2. Once you upload that, that image would be stored inside S3. Whenever someone requests that image, it would get the URL of the image, show you the image. But all processing logic, storing, everything would be in the EC2. Does it make sense? Does it clear your concept? S3 is only for the static, no processing at all. Remember I talk about the kind of a concept of FTP? It's a bad analogy, but just wanted to clear the concept. You can't have the processing here. Is it clear for everyone now? A question from Bhupesh is, what if I want to host the application on AWS? I showed you last week, I hosted on EC2 Apache web server. You can do that. Right? EC2 is for your hosting. It gives you virtual server. You host your application web server and everything there. Put your file over there, which can make a call to the S3 using APIs and SDKs to upload the static files. For example, to give you one of the best example, how do you use the S3? You have a web application which would have some of the CSS file, HTML file, some images, as well as it would have some static content there, right? And some dynamic parts which allows you to upload the images and everything. You host application on EC2 on Apache, where your PHP file might be this PHP file. Wherever it needs CSS for CSS, CSS might be hosted on S3 because it's a static. Your HTML would be hosted in S3. Your image may be hosted on S3. Whenever somebody uploads an image, the request would come to the PHP. PHP would make a call SDK to S3 to upload the image there. So image would be stored here. Does it make clear to you what PHP is doing at EC2 and what S3 is doing for you? Is it clear now? Everybody who had doubt something, how do I host a web application? How would I make a, why would I use S3? Ricardo, does it answer your questions now? Okay, great. So good to know everybody is clear. Now let's move on to our next service. Let's take some story. You are having your own data center. Remember, I am talking your own data center, not Amazon. No, sorry, let me use some other color. You are having your own data center where you have multiple servers. You are the administrator of this server. Now there could be some issue in one of the server, and it's not possible that you would be there at 24/7, right? So you would say that whenever something goes wrong, send me an SMS or email, which is okay, anybody can do. That's a possible. But when you are at home, you may not be connected to your mobile all the time. You might not be checking SMS every time. Your 80% SMS are marketing SMS, which you don't want. What you want is that whenever this is my house, this is my living room, this is my bedroom, this is the kitchen, something like that. Whenever something goes wrong at the data center, one of the server goes down, light at my bedroom and light at my drawing room or living room should turn to red color. The light should turn to the red color. Doesn't it sound a great thing? You don't need to go and check your email. You are sitting, you are having your dinner, and suddenly the light color changes to red. You say, oh, emergency. I need to rush and check something. How does it sound? Amazon CloudWatch does not provide electricity, does not provide the red color bulbs, does not change the color of the bulb, but it helps you to facilitate this kind of a mechanism. So let's see what Amazon CloudWatch can do for you. Amazon CloudWatch is basically nothing but a monitoring service offered by Amazon, which can monitor your own Amazon resources. Amazon resources means like, or Amazon services I would use, like EC2, S3, RDS, autoscaling, all those services. It would help you to monitor those services and then help you to take certain actions based on that. Apart from Amazon resources, it also allows you that you can configure to upload your own records or your own monitoring data to Amazon CloudWatch to take certain actions. Basically, it is nothing but a monitoring service which can help you to monitor resources like Amazon EC2 instances, EBS volumes, load balancers, autoscaling databases, all that. And it also helps you to monitor your charges. Now somebody asked me last week, can I control my charges? Can I get a notification if I overuse it? Amazon CloudWatch would help you. Now, what it does is, it gives you up to the minutes of statistics. You can get data up to 1 minute of the data. You can view the graphs. You can set the alarms to take certain necessary actions also. Now remember, there is a very basic concept you need to know. This is your EC2 instance. Now EC2 instance would have a multiple servers running over there. For example, there is a web server, there is a app server, both are running here. And there is a database server also running here. This is a worst architecture to think about, but just for a reference I'm telling you. Now there could be something where your web server may be down, or app server may be down, or some issue with the database. CloudWatch does not monitor that by default. CloudWatch monitors the health of your EC2 overall, like whether EC2 instance is working fine or not. You would say, what does I need to watch in the EC2 if it's not able to watch my servers? For example, if your EC2 instance is having a one web server, just an example. Now, this EC2 instance is expecting certain load. Now it gets only 300 requests per second or per minute. Suddenly that request count increased to the 3000. So your load on web server has increased. Your CPU utilization might have increased. Your network IO might have increased. Considering all this, EC2 provides the parameters to monitor the CPU utilization of EC2 instance, network IO of the EC2 instance. It can help you to monitor those parameters of the overall EC2 instance. So it's more like a server level parameters it would help you, not a particular web application level. But you would say, but I want to monitor the web server also. I am not interested only for the EC2. It's okay. You can write your own data scripts which can keep getting the performance of the web servers and then keep uploading this data to CloudWatch manually or writing certain scripts. CloudWatch can do that for you. But by default it would give you for the EC2 only. Right? And it can get you information up to 1 minute. It can also present you data through the graphs. You can set certain alarms and take the actions. Now I'm getting a few questions here. I'm just parking for a while because most of the questions I would be answering in a upcoming slides. So I would answer those questions in a while. Understand, this is a very important thing to know. CloudWatch helps you to monitor Amazon resources as well as your custom parameters also. But for the custom parameters, you need to write a script and then upload that data to the CloudWatch. Why do you need a CloudWatch? It can give you the visibility of your resource utilization, operational performance, trend analysis. For example, you are having an EC2 instance where if you see it's a usage pattern, it shows something like this. Every day 9 a.m. usage increased by the 60%. Every day after 5 p.m. usage decreased by the 30%. That shows that between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. there is a huge load on the instances. I can do something predictive analysis. If I want to plan something better, I can do that. How would you work with the CloudWatch? I'll show that in a while in detail with the demos. You sign up for that. Now, CloudWatch comes in two flavors for the EC2 and autoscaling. When you start an EC2 instance, CloudWatch will give you two ways. One is called the basic, another is called the detailed. Basic is where you get all data at every 5 minutes, free of cost, lifetime. It's nothing but a free tier. All the time you will get free of the cost. If you go for a detailed analysis, you can get the metrics data every 1 minute, but it would cost you. Even if you part of the free usage tier, it would cost you. So all those who are concerned for the cost, remember not to turn on the detailed, else it may cost you. How much? I'll come that in a while. So you go to the Amazon Management Console and you can use that. So let's see that some demo and we can see that. So I'll go to the EC2. Remember, it provides these services for most of the Amazon services like EC2, RDS, autoscaling, EBS for all those. Yes, it may not provide for the S3 because you don't need to monitor anything at the S3 level. I'll just start an instance as of now. I forgot to start, so I'll start it quickly. I'll launch the instance for a while. Now when I go to the instance, you would see instance state would be in a pending state, but there are two things also. And if you remember last time I said we should wait for the status check to be 2 by 2. What is that 2 by 2? This is not the Prahar movie where Nana Patekar used to say 2 by 2. This is 2 by 2 which verifies how your instance is working. It will pass through two checks. One is called the system status check. Another is called the instance status checks. And what these two do means, we will see that in a while. Also, when you go to the monitoring, you would see this is what the CloudWatch alarm would look like. It would have a CPU utilization of the data. Currently, it would have disk read writes in bytes, disk IO operations, network in, network out, and this all parameters it would show here. Now, once you have everything, once you have some data available, it would show starting plotting some graphs also, which I'll come that in a while. If you want to enable detailed monitoring, you can enable here. But as I said, when you enable it, enable monitoring for instance to get metrics at 1 minute, it would charge you extra. Are you sure you want to do that? It's not part of the free usage tier, so you can skip it. There would be no difference here in the data. Just instead of 5 minutes, it would be plotting data at every 1 minute. Now, so as I said, you can launch an instance, you can enable detailed CloudWatch monitoring, and you can see that. Once you have the data, it would show the data something similar to this. CPU utilization, disk read, disk writes, network IO, something like that data would come to you. How much would it cost? Basic, free of the cost, so it's a FOC. But detail would cost you 50 cents per metric per month. So by default it gives 7 metrics. So total $3.50 per instance per month. Now what does I mean? If I have launch 10 instances, for each instance if I have enabled the detail monitoring, Amazon will charge me extra $35 per month because 3.5 per instance. So total $35 for 10 instances. This is how the detail monitoring would cost you. Going further, this is just an EC2 architecture and how it would be helpful. CloudWatch for you. And for all those, if you want to run away sometimes before we end the session, remember to attend tomorrow's session. I'm sure you would enjoy because tomorrow we would do the real hands-on of the scaling and load balancing. We would do the load balancing plus scaling in hands-on. So I'm sure you would enjoy that. So how does the EC2 architecture would work for you? Here, generally when you launch an EC2 instance, you would configure CloudWatch to monitor for that. And for the CloudWatch, you will create certain alarms saying that whenever my CPU is more than 65%, take certain action. Or wherever my CPU is less than 10%, take certain action. Now when you have all this thing, what you can do is, what action should it take? It can take an auto scaling action. In the auto-scaling action, auto-scaling can launch or terminate an instance automatically for you. So CloudWatch plays a crucial role in scaling, that it can scale up or scale, it can notify auto-scaling to scale up or scale down. How does that work? I'll show in practical in demo tomorrow with auto-scaling policy. But yes, today we will definitely discuss about the CloudWatch alarm. Now, when I talk about the CloudWatch, ideally, CloudWatch is nothing but a repository of the data, which should have certain trigger actions. What does this mean? CloudWatch can receive data from two channels. One is Amazon products like EC2, RDS, ELB, autoscaling, DynamoDB, and there are so many products Amazon offers. You can get the data from that. But that's the service level data. For example, I get the EC2 data, it would be for the EC2's usage. How the CPU of that machine doing, how much network IO happening at the machine level. Now internally, how my web server is doing, how my something is doing. For that, you need to use your custom data. So you need to write, CloudWatch provides you the standard APKs, SDKs, APIs, not the APK, sorry, SDKs and APIs, which you can use it to upload data, your own custom data to CloudWatch also. Now, why would I need this? CloudWatch is nothing but a repository of data. So it would keep receiving data from Amazon services or your own custom. It would keep storing that data over there. Now, once the data is available, CloudWatch also gives you an option to view the data through Amazon Management Console. How? So we showed you, this is the data you can view. It's still launching. It would plot only after 5 minutes. So you would see certain data here using the Amazon Management Console. Or you can write your own consumer also. You want to create your own consumer using CloudWatch APIs. CloudWatch would give you the data. You write your own consumer which would get you the data, and you want to plot, you want to run the analytics, you want to do anything, you can do that. For example, you are uploading certain log data here, just an example, and you want to run the analytics that if my CPU or if my web server is having traffic more than 50%, average traffic more than 50%, generate this kind of a report or notify this user. You can write your own statistic consumer. This is completely code you have to write, where you fetch data from the CloudWatch and then you run the analytics and then you do the take the action, whatever you want to do that. But it's a repository of the data. Now you would say, but that I can do with the database also. Why would I come to the CloudWatch? I can store all my personal data to the database and then I would write the consumer to get it, right? Why would I need a CloudWatch here? Because CloudWatch also provides an important parameter called alarm. This alarm can help you to take necessary action. Does it mean what? For example, I just spoke about the CPU of the EC2 instance. Whenever CPU is greater than 70%, you can notify the auto scaling or notify the SNS or notify the EC2 action. Now what is this action it means? To explain in detail, you have the CloudWatch as a repository of the data which is monitoring the data at regular interval, 5 minutes, 1 minute, whatever it is there. Now whenever it finds something, outliners means you have the data coming, you have set a threshold that my threshold is between 30 to 70. If it's within 30 to 70, any data coming, I am okay. If there is something case where it's going for more than 70 for consecutive 10 minutes, I don't want to go for one case only, that can be due to any spike or something, but whenever consecutive 10 minutes it is going for more than 70, something like 80, 90. Or for consecutive 30 minutes, it is like 10%. That means it's a something outliner or something beyond that what you anticipated, or no, it can be an abnormal behavior. Take certain action. Now what action you want to take? First action would be notify auto scaling. So you can link your alarm with the auto scaling, where it would notify the auto scaling policy, and whatever is written in policy to launch new instance or terminate the instance, it can do that. So it can notify that. Second would be EC2 action. I would just talk to the here first. For example, you started a batch process which can run for 4 hours, 8 hours, 10 days, 20 days. You don't know how long it would run. You can't keep on going. You say whenever the data it is done, just stop the instance. I don't want to keep the instance running because it would cost me. So what you can do here is, you can configure that whenever my CPU utilization is less than 5% for consecutive 30 minutes, that means that batch process is finished now. Take EC2 action. EC2 action can be to either stop or terminate that instance. So alarm can also take an action where it can automatically stop the instance or terminate the instance also. And one more critical is notify using simple notification service. Now this simple notification service provides you 4 options. Or rather I would say there could be multiple, but 4 is the primary. One is send an email. Second could be send a notification over the mobile APIs, send an SMS, or even send over HTTP point. Tarun, I'm not clear what you are talking about. Okay, when I sent an alarm, for example, this is my CPU, when it's above 80%, let's try and talk our case of that house. This is your data center. This is my data center. Let me make this is my data center, which is uploading data to using custom data to here. That data is being uploaded to the CloudWatch. You have configured that whenever CPU goes above 70%, whenever this data parameter is coming, take an alarm or notify the alarm or take the action of the alarm. Which action? Notify me over email. Okay, so it would immediately drop an email to me saying you have something outlying, your CPU is going above 70%. Notify over me SMS also. This SMS works only for the US numbers as of now, but it can send you SMS also. Great. Then notify me over HTTP protocol. Now HTTP protocol, what I could have done here is, I could have, this is my house as I showed, this is my bedroom, living room, kitchen, something like that. Now I might have a bulbs here. There might be a small computer running in my machine home, which would be available over internet. This computer may be connected to a sensor device, and this sensor would be connected to this light bulbs. So now in this case, whenever there is an outlier, alarm would send a notification to HTTP protocol. That is the nothing but a web address of my web server which is in my house. This web server would notify sensor that I have received some notification, and web server would immediately turn my light bulb to red color. Do you think now it's possible? Do you think would it work? Any thought? No one? It would definitely work. And I'll tell you, one person has tried similar thing. He shared his case over the internet, some blog, and I like the idea, so I use this as a story for my, but that has happened and it's working perfectly for the people. So why do you use CloudWatch? You use CloudWatch not only for storing the data or viewing the data, but more necessarily to take certain action for that also. So this is what the purpose of the CloudWatch and how it would be helpful for you. Right, now let's see what CloudWatch can do. If this, I have some data available. You can see some data started plotting here. It's my CPU utilization, disk read write, something, it's almost 0. And then my network in, it was starting 0 because when it was launching, then it's almost come down. Now, this instance would be available over internet also. I have hosted a web server there. So I would give this URL to everyone. And I would request everyone to try this. Just try out and let me know. Just try this, hitting this instance for a couple of times. You can try from the different instance also, a different browser, sorry. Did you try? Okay, a few people tried. So good. Now, after a 5 minutes, we would see the output also in the CloudWatch, whether it has changed something or not. Again, it would be very minute, but let's see. The page would work for you, but what would happen in the CloudWatch? That's the only thing I wanted to check. We'll check in a 5 minutes time whether there is some change, though it would be minutely, but we would see in a 5 minutes time. Till that time, I'll take you to some more part of the CloudWatch. You can access the CloudWatch from services or from the deployment and management, administration security. Over there, you can access the CloudWatch also. Now, when you go to the CloudWatch console, it's loading for you. It's still loading. This is the CloudWatch console. Now you would see the data here for the various metrics. Now what are the metrics available as of now? I can go and say browse metrics. So I have a currently EBS metrics and EC2 because I have used only 2 Amazon service in the last 2 to 3 weeks, whatever time, 2 weeks. So it will show me this too. Now let's go to the EC2 metrics first. Now for these metrics, which is my current metric, let me just see my current instance ID. My instance ID is 7617D16. So this is the my instance ID, current instance ID which I have launched. This is the data of that. The above instance ID is one I launched last week for our demo, if you remember. And if I click on that, it would not show any data as of now. But if I just click here on the right hand side, where I just mark it for you, I can get the 1 week's data, and you can see some data for that. If I want to highlight the only this data, I can just click on mouse, select this area and zoom it. It would show me certain data saying that okay, sometime my CPU was there because I tried to do access something, but it was, again, I use it very minutely, so it was only 0.253 over there. Otherwise it was very less most of the time. If for the same part I go and try to see the network out or network in, you would see it would have a very less data available. Only sometime it had there because I did not do any network out there. There might be something for the network in. Same thing, very minute data available. I think it's the data, nothing, there is no more data. Now let's see our instance. Did I get some data now? Okay, what happened? It's not showing anything. Oh, I selected 2. Let me clear all. Oh, mine is this one, sorry. Yeah, so there is some data coming up, but you can see very minute data, 0.33%, not much. If I just try to see the network IO, if there was something happened, again very minutely, 1024 something. So you can see the data here. This was only 299 bytes before. Now when we started clicking something, it reached little bit, so around 1000 bytes. Then when we some more hits, around 2511 bytes. So some more data transfer happened, but then it stopped over here. So very less data transfer, but yeah, there is something data to show. Now, so this is what the data, and more you do IOs and more you do the part here, you would get all this data here. So this is what you require for your monitoring system. Now, if I want to take certain actions on this, how can I create an alarms? So I can go to the create alarms by just going to the alarms, and I'll say create alarm. I can select the instance. For example, I want to create alarm for my CPU utilization. I selected that instance and with the CPU utilization, and I say next. I can give some name. When CPU is more than 70%. Okay, what do I need to do? For consecutive 1 period, I would say consecutive 2 period. Now what does a period define? Period is defined on the right hand side at the bottom. 1 period equal to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you want to define. So I say 2 consecutive periods, each period of 5 minutes means total 10 minutes. When it's more than 70%, so it would be in a state of alarm. Now what action should it take? When state is alarm, notify me through this, or I can add a new list. Am I audible? Am I audible? Am I audible now? Am I audible? Am I audible? Hello? Am I audible to all now? Are you able to hear me? Hello? Am I audible? Hello? Am I audible now? Hello? Am I audible? Hello? Am I audible to everyone? Am I audible now? Hello? Hello? Hey, Niranjan. Yeah, Niranjan. Tarun here. Yeah, so suddenly it got disconnected me and now it connected me back, but my voice is not audible to everyone. when I type they can see something, but it looks like they are not able to hear me. Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, please check. Yeah.